You ready? I'm a firm believer in starting on time. Y'all are here and we want to be done by 1:30, so I think we should get started. Welcome back. My plan for this first hour is to do some review. And I'm going to show you why we're going to do some review in just a second. And then maybe go in a little bit more into comprehension because I kind of shortchanged you on that last time, and also talk about language experience approach. And I think that will fill our hour. So let me show you why we need to review. Let me get to the slide. Hold on. Let me see. There we go. I'm not so seamless today, so give me a sec. Here we go. Oops, I did that wrong. Hold on. The reason I want to do review is because this sentence right here, this one, this gobbledygook, who can read that for me? Come on, guys, we did this. We spent some time last time. What was that?
The boy is on a ship. Oh.
Very good. Very good. It is. It's this boy is on a ship. Good job. I bet.
I had no clue.
I bet the rest of you did not know. Yeah. Because we forget. Because things come up. Because we're adults. And man, if you don't have to know it, why would you? Right? So it's always important to review. Please, please, please. I think you should spend 20 minutes at the beginning of your lesson reviewing. It is a chunk of what you do. It is imperative that you review with your student. Doesn't hurt. Sure doesn't hurt. So, and I have a couple more things that I want to review that are on this slide, actually. The next thing I want to ask you is, first of all, what is direct instruction? We spent some time however many weeks ago that was, talking about direct instruction. We did the Ameris exercise, which was this sentence, those 2 paragraphs that we worked on. We also did the backwards reading, and I led you through direct instruction. And there are 4 steps to direct instruction. Do you remember could anybody explain to me what direct instruction is?
I, we, you. I, we, you.
I do, we do, you do. Very good. Very good. What does that mean, though?
Explain and demonstrate. And that's the I part. The we part is show what good is, guiding, practice with feedback. Yeah, you do it together, and then you is they do it independently.
Super.
With general guidance, I guess.
And right on. And I see that you're cheating, and I love it. We should all, there is no, you can always go back to your notes. You can always review things. You can always do that. And that's what we need, right? And we want to show our students as well, like how to use these tools that are available to them, because I'm thinking about an adult basic student, an American-born student. Those are some of the skills that they're lacking. It's like, it's not necessarily, it is the reading and writing, but it's also the accessing information and finding ways to help themselves, finding ways to navigate systems, finding ways to study. So, going back and rereading notes, we want to encourage our students to do that because they otherwise probably won't. So, direct instruction, I digress, is explicit instruction. It's explicitly showing them and doing it so that they know how to do it. And we need to do that. We can't just assume that they're going to know how to do something. We need to show them and do it. And is your name Bob? I'm sorry, yes. What is your name? Bob. So, So Bob let us know the 4 steps of direct instruction. So we do, the first step is what and why. And that is part of the explicit part of this instruction, is you tell them exactly what it is they're going to learn today and why it's important, how this new skill or information will directly help them in their daily life. My phone's going crazy about our news, so yay.
Mine too.
Mine too.
Little distracted. Okay, so the what and the why, and we don't want people to have to figure it out. We want them to understand right away why the information that we're presenting them is important and how they can use it today, immediately, which is what our adult students need. And that's quick, right? I'm going through all this review because I know you forgot, and we can all benefit from rehearing things, and you may get new information out of that. Then we go into the I do, we do, you do. So the I do is I don't have it for me, demonstrate and show what is good, right? So we show them, as a teacher, I'm going to show you exactly what I expect. I'm going to walk you step by step how to do this math problem, how to tackle this grammar point, right? I'm going to show you, and I'm going to do it perfectly the way that I want you to do it, right? Show what good is, what you expect. So that's I do. We do is guided practice. So we're going to work together. Student and teacher are working together. Teacher is right there helping the student when they're wrong, correcting them, making sure that the student is going to be able to do it on their own. And then the 4th step is the you do, independent practice, where they're going to apply this information and use it on their own. So that's the 4th step. But again, you're right on. I do, we do, you do. Okay. Any questions about direct instruction? Any comments? Another question I have for you then. We spent a lot of time last training about teaching vocabulary. How do you teach vocabulary? There were 3 steps. Anybody remember them? You open cheating. Look it up if you don't know. 3 steps for teaching vocabulary. Again, this is a
Convey meaning, check for understanding, and consolidate. Is that?
That's it. That's it. You got it. They're the 3 C's of teaching vocabulary, which is important for American-born students and English language learners. Vocabulary is huge. I was talking kindergarten. When I teach kindergarten math, most of what we do is vocabulary. We talk about vocabulary in math in kindergarten. I mean, it's just something that we all need to strengthen, and particularly our students. So the 3 C's for teaching vocabulary. Part 1 is convey the meaning, right? Whatever you need to do to get the student to understand what that word is and means, right? It can be just showing a picture. It can be giving a story, reading it in context, conveying the meaning. The 2nd step is check for understanding. And I gave some suggestions last time about giving a simple yes/no question to try to catch that. Just a real quick check-in, you know. Is this a sneeze? Right, and you can get right away like, no, that's not a sneeze, right? Is that a sneeze? Yeah. So it's a real quick, you know, but has content tied in with it so that you really know that they got the meaning of the word you're teaching. And the last one is consolidate learning, which means that they use it. And really that's I do, we do, you do. I do. I'm going to tell you what that word means. We do. I'm going to check in with you, make sure the student understands it. You do. Use that word now. I want the student to use that word in some kind of context, because then they make that personal connection and they play with that word and they remember it. The last review I wanted to do was, there are 3 steps for teaching comprehension. Now, we flew through this. Does anybody, open cheating, know what the 3 steps for teaching comprehension are? And I think I may reteach this today. But go ahead.
Pre-read, actual read, and post-read, right?
Super job. It's that easy. Pardon me. We can even say before, during, and after. It's that simple. But when you teach comprehension, we need to prime the pump. We need to get them ready for what it is that they're going to be reading or listening to. We want to give them, so that's our pre-reading, maybe teaching vocabulary, showing a picture, especially on digital learning. Personally, we want visual. I should have all kinds of pictures and slides going, and we'll get that going in a minute. But anything helps your students kind of focus in. Pictures are huge, and you can do such a quick Google search and find an image. So it's so easy to get some pictures. Then during reading or active reading, we want to give them something to be listening for, or reading for, a comprehension question to answer, vocabulary words to look for, something to keep them awake and alert while they're reading. And then post-reading, we want to ask lots of questions and make sure that they really understood it. Okay, let's go. Let's see. We're going to skip ahead. And I'm going to go review all of that comprehension. And then we'll talk about language experience. I think we have enough time. Unless you guys tell me, would you rather skip comprehension and go to language experience, talk about language experience and lesson planning, which is that's like a little nitty gritty. Or would you like to recover comprehension, which works for reading comprehension for American-born students and listening comprehension for ESL students and language experience activity? So would you rather do comprehension or lesson planning?
I'd rather do lesson plan. That's one vote.
Okay. I see another woman's nodding her head. Is that Amy? Is that your name,
Yeah,
Amy?
me too.
Lesson planning.
Okie doke. Lesson planning it is. Okay. So we're going to do language experience. Do you guys know, before we go there, do you know about the Kwl chart?
Yeah.
So let me just tell you about this real quick. I'm going to have you make one. So get a sheet of paper. And on your sheet of paper, you can fold it in thirds if you want. And at the top of one column, you're going to put a K, the middle column a W, and the third column an L. Just like that. That K stands for know. What do you know about the topic? So you can even write the word know. What do you know? The W stands for want to know. And the L stands for learn. What did you learn? So make your KWL chart. That's a comprehension strategy. This is something you can do for comprehension. And I'm going to be teaching you all about this thing called language experience activity. And we're going to fill in our chart, our KWL chart, as we learn about this language experience activity. Under the K, I want you to tell me what you know, or what you think you may know, or what you predict language experience activity is. I mean, you may not know. This may be the first time you're ever hearing about that. What do you think it might be? This is our pre-reading, right? This is our pre-comprehension. I'm priming the pump. We're pulling on background knowledge. I mean, think about the words language experience activity. What do those make you think of? And jot down some ideas. You're not being graded. The only person that's going to see this is you. So take a couple minutes, 30 seconds. What do you know, or what do you think you know about language experience activity? Well, I'm going to tell you just a smidgen about language experience activity. You'll also hear me call it LEA. LEA is a technique, let me move this, where the tutor records the learner's exact words on paper, and the learner's own ideas and words become the text that he or she can learn from. So this is a technique where we're going to take our students' words, we're going to get a story from them, we're going to write it down on paper, and we're going to use that as their text to read. So now I would like for you, I have given you just a smidgen of information. I didn't want to give you too much because we're going to learn some more about it. But that middle column, the W, means what do you want to learn? What questions do you have? What things do you think might be interesting to learn more about? And I want you to fill in that column. What do you want to learn about language experience activity? I see some diligent students. So as a teacher, I want to know what do you want to learn about language experience activity? What are some of the questions or tidbits you came up with?
How to prepare.
How to prepare, super question, super thought.
How to expand their language efficiently.
How to expand their language efficiently, super.
You said the learner's ideas and words become the text, and what do you do if their ideas about the topic are incorrect?
Yeah, super.
So they have misconceptions about the topic.
Because we talked about that last time too, right? Like they're getting information from here and here and here. Where are they getting their information from? And do we want to tweak that a little bit? Do we want to make
Right.
sure there's that full understanding? Yeah, right on, right on. So I had how to expand their language efficiently, misconceptions, how to prepare. Anything else? Make sure I cover these things.
When to use it. So
When.
like when it'll be more effective and less effective, like in what context? Which kind of learner, you know, what kind of challenges does it help with?
Good. So when we fill in, or you have a student fill in what they know, that's our pre-reading. I'm just going to go back to this comprehension tactic. When you fill in the what to learn or want to learn, they're going to refer back to this while they're reading or while they're listening to something. And they're going to come back and be like, oh, am I answering my questions? Oh, did I make a wrong prediction? Let me change it. So it keeps them actively engaged in what they're learning. So they can come back, and it's personal too, right? It's what they want to learn. It's what they're interested in. So it keeps it more engaging and relevant. We will fill in the last column at the end. So this is going to be our post reading. This is what I learned. So it's a good review for your student. Do not fill this in while we are talking. I want you to fill this. I'm going to give you time after we finish language experience to then synthesize what you have learned. And this is so easy, right? We're talking about preparation. This takes absolutely zero preparation on your part. All they need is a single sheet of paper, and you put KWL on it. Simple. That's what we want, right? Okay, yeah. So let's talk about this language experience activity. Again, it's very easy to prepare. Yes. So what we do, and who does this work for? So this works for both American-born students who are working on their reading, and it works with English language learners who are working on their language and vocabulary. So what happens is we ask a student, oh, I think I have a slide on this. Here's the process. So we ask our students to tell us about something. Tell me about your weekend. Tell me about your favorite movie. Tell me about a recipe. I don't know. Tell me what's coming up. Veterans Day. Do they have family in the military? What's the military like in their home country? These are kind of touchy topics as well. So you have to know your student. How was your Halloween? There's lots of different things. What do you think about the president? There's a multitude of topics that you can have your student talk about, right? So not only is this going to give us a good reading lesson, but it's also going to help build rapport between you and your student, right? Which is a big thing. And it's going to be, you're only getting a paragraph from them, right? We don't want a novel. It's just 3 to 8 sentences. And they're going to have to tell you slowly so that you can get it down on paper and write it exactly as they tell you, mistakes and all. You may want to record it and then go back and type it up. Either way, you're probably going to have to get it down on paper and then make a nice, neat copy of it. Okay, so that's the first week. That's lesson number 1. Just getting the story from the student. Next, and then you will then need to prepare a nice copy of it and bring it in to your next lesson, or send it to them and online. I would do this a little differently depending on if it's an American-born student working on their reading or if it's an ESL student working on their overall language learning. For an American-born student working on their reading, you're now going to use this, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples in just a minute. You're going to use this copy, this text, for them to now read. So it's their own story, it's their own words, It should hopefully be very interesting to them since it's their own words. And it's been a week since they've told you this story, so it's not like they're gonna be able to remember verbatim what they said. These are words that they use in daily language, and so we wanna make sure that they can also read these words. It should be successful because it is their own words. So we want the next 3 points, number 3, 4, and 5, read the story to the student, read the story with the student, and then read sentence by sentence. That could be like, I read a sentence, student read a sentence, and then we go back and forth practicing reading. Those all work on the student's fluency, to get them reading, with accuracy and with a good speed so that they understand it, which was one of those 4 circles that we didn't get to last time, but is also very important. We want to make sure our students can read so that they understand. And so this is a really good activity to help them get that fluency. And then at the end, we want to also ask them questions about what they just read. And again, they should be very successful at that, right? Because it is their own story. And you know what, for students who struggle and struggle and struggle, isn't it nice to be successful at something and for something to come a little easier for them? We want to do that for them. We want to boost them and help them feel good about something as well. So this LEA is just a great way to kind of sneak some learning in on them, because while they may be able to speak all of these words, they may not be able to read all of them. And we want them to feel an ease and a confidence in reading that they don't normally feel. So this is a great example of that. For an ESL student, I think my next example is for an ESL student. I'm gonna have to stop sharing my screen for a minute. No, I won't. So, okay. So this is an example. Often I would read this to you. I used to have a recording of it, of a student who was from Russia, and she was telling a story about going home and visiting her family. And so generally I would say it and I would ask you to write it. And just so you kind of got a feel of trying to keep up with me as I was saying the story. But what happened here is that the student told us the story, we went and then wrote it down, and this is what is now the reading context. And what we got from this Russian student, an ESL learner, is go to home, we go home, and I give present my mother. My mother prepared many delicious food. I and my husband sitting on the table. On the table, we are eating many delicious food. Then we called parents, my husband. His parents are very glad that me came to Moscow. So there's an example of that is what the student said. And we wrote it down exactly as the student said it. But I'm going to show you my next copy is actually not putting everything in, but taking out, not the errors. We're going to leave the errors in there, but taking out some of the duplications, like sitting for, sorry. She was thinking. And so we don't want to penalize her for like, oh, she's just collecting her thoughts there. So I'm going to take out some of that. Well, what she says still isn't exactly correct. It's more accurate for what is actually coming out. Then we called. So it ends up looking like this. This is what I'll show the student. We go home and I give present my mother. My mother prepared many delicious food. I and my husband sitting on the table. On the table, we are eating many delicious food. Then we called parents, my husband. His parents are very glad that me came to Moscow. And I'm going to come back See you later. I'm going to come back with this. Excuse me one second. Could you please leave? Okay. Give me a second. I lost my train of thought. We're going to take this. We're going to bring it back. We're going to ask our student to read it. Because again, even though this is an ESL learner, we want to make sure that they can read all of these words. Then I may have my student may read this and go, ooh, did I say that? I meant to say we went home, because that's the proper term. And so then we can go and we can make the changes. So we're going to give a student an opportunity to self-correct and make some of their own changes. And isn't that the best way to learn? And then if there are still errors, well, that's going to give us some fuel for future lessons. We're going to see like, oh, they really kept messing this up. I know that we need to cover that grammar point. Who sees something here that they may want to work on with their student? I'm just going to work on my lighting. Hold on. Who sees something that they go, oh, that student needs to work on this grammar point?
There needs to be an article before present. I give a present.
Articles, super. A, and the. Mm-hmm.
Oral, so many delicious foods. And I thought there was something else.
She did that a couple times with food.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on, right on. We want to work on that. Plurals. What else?
Preposition or yeah, and I give a present to my mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 4 on the table.
4 on the table. Give present to my mother. Yeah, and I think my very limited understanding of Russian is that they don't have prepositions. So prepositions are a really difficult thing for a Russian learning English.
And pronouns, his parents are very glad that I came to Moscow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a couple more. Anybody want to catch them?
I'm not really sure what you're trying to say. Then we called my parents' husband, my husband's parent. Yeah.
Possessives. Possessives.
Possessive.
My parent, my husband's parents. Mm-hmm. That's right.
When the first sentence where she said we go home instead of we went home, but that's hard, or that's higher level.
Well, it's past tense. And
Yeah.
really it's irregular past tense, but it's still simple past tense. So we went home, I gave. So yeah, we want to work on those irregular past tense verbs. Mm-hmm. Good, I think we got all of them. Maybe my husband and I mean, so
Yeah.
we can see like, this is the language that our student is using, and we want to make sure that they're using it correctly. So this gives us some fuel for our lessons. And then I'm gonna bring this out next week and have my student read it, and they may come up with some changes. I'm gonna bring it out 3 months from now, and I'm gonna let them read it, and then they can go, oh, I want to change this, this, and this. And so they're gonna see their own progress, right? Which is also a fantastic thing. Language experience just has so many benefits to it. I highly encourage you to do this, once or twice a month, maybe every other week, do a language experience activity with your students. Another question we had was how to expand their language efficiently. And so this is a way, like, we're going to build upon what they already know. Maybe we can suggest other vocabulary that they can use. Maybe we can kind of prod them for more details. So this is, this is a way that we can build upon what they already are doing well and what they're using. so it fits them personally. How do we, so I'm looking back on your what you want to know. How do we change their misconceptions? You know, that's always something that is, has to be done subtly, just in general, because we don't want them to be embarrassed or feel like they're stupid. So you'll have to find subtle ways, maybe by bringing in different things for them to read and to then discuss maybe a way. And you'll be able to just kind of see inside their mind more when you do these kinds of things, to see like, well, maybe I'll have to bring in an article about this because they're maybe not quite accurate. And then when to use this is good for any level learner, certainly a low level learner. This is a fantastic thing. A low level learner, we can pinpoint those words that they're already using and make sure that they can read them. A low level, and it's also, it will eventually help their writing as well, because they're going to see how what we speak is often what we write, and to practice good grammar to then also have good writing in our speaking and our listening. And I do that even in kindergarten. I mean, there are parallels here between teaching children and teaching adults, but I'm working right now with my kindergarten students to get them speaking in full sentences, because when they can speak in a full sentence, they'll be more primed to write in full sentences. So their speaking directly affects their writing, and we want them strong in both. And we're tapping into what their strengths are already. Let's see what else we have here. Let me do a time check. Okay. So let's make sure I told you everything. So this is more for a American-born student. We want to look in what their text was that they created. We want to look for new sight words that, again, that are in their speaking vocabulary that we want to make sure that they can read. Make flashcards of those words. Look for word families like the at family, bat, cat, mat. For a lower level learner, that will be very helpful for them to understand those patterns in language. We could create a close exercise, and that's a fancy word for fill in the blank. So if there's a vocabulary word you want to reinforce with them, or a grammar point that you want to reinforce with them, you can take that text, remove the word that you're looking for, give them a word bank, and they can put that word back in. It's just another way to keep them active while they're reading. We could cut the sentences into strips, mix them up, and have them put them back in order, which is another, I mean, anytime you can get their fingers moving is great. You could probably online make a Google Doc where they can click and drag to put things back in order, right? You can make a PowerPoint slide and make a text box for each sentence, and then they can drag them back to where they are. So that's just another engaging thing you can do. And then the last thing I have here is to give a title to the story. Kind of synthesize what it is that they were saying, which is a really hard thing for certainly our basic literacy students to do.
I have a quick tip. For recording, my student always said I wrote too slow. She's very impatient. Now, I was doing this over the phone on a landline. So I got my cell phone and recorded her on my cell phone, and then played it back and wrote it down. And that seemed to solve the problem.
And I even think there are apps out there that will take the dictation and put it into writing for you. So like there's even shorter cuts out there for you. Super.
Can you go over what sight words are? Because I remember that from middle school. I forget.
Yeah, we didn't cover that last time. A sight, when we read, in general, we use phonics, where we can sound out each letter and make a word out of it. But most of our reading vocabulary is done through sight words. We look at the word and we know it. We don't have to spend time sounding it out. And so we want to make sure, we want to give our students a lot of sight words so that it's automatic. It makes reading faster for them. Often, sight words are going to be high frequency words like the, and, like, is. Other times you want them to have sight words that don't follow phonetic rules, like the word does, D-O-E-S, or I'm going to say when, W-H-E-N, you know, all those weird words, those English words.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. Any more questions? Anyone else? And then again, with this language experience, you can keep an audio portfolio, you can keep the written copies, so that they go back and look at them. Like when you're done with it, you're not going to throw it away. You want to bring it back because they're going to see their progression, and we want to be able to celebrate those improvements with them. I want to keep moving because we wanted to talk about lesson planning. I'm just going to give you a quick and dirty on this. Why should you plan your lessons? How much time do I have?
Efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
It gets real awkward real
Amy, you're
fast. If you
laughing.
don't have it. Because it gets real awkward real fast if you don't have a lesson plan.
It sure does. It sure does.
I'm laughing because it's such an obvious answer for me.
There's lots of reasons. Sure, like, what if you don't plan anything and then you don't have enough? Like, it's embarrassing, right? And it's like, it's uncomfortable and it's awkward. The flip side of that is you only have an hour or 2 hours. And if you plan it out, you'll find there's a lot you want to try to fit in there. So we want to make sure that we get to everything that we want to get to. So time. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to go through some more ideas. Materials, if you need any materials or if you need to prepare things, like if you want a Google image, like do that before your lesson and have it ready, so that your student gets more time to practice with you there. And efficiency, yeah. Just making sure that you can cover everything and that you think about it and make sure that it makes sense. For example, when teaching a vocabulary word, you may think, okay, I know that word. But when you go to actually teach someone and explain that word, you may go, oh, I don't have like a succinct way of explaining this word. So you really kind of need to put some forethought into that so that you're ready to teach them concisely so that they can understand. Okay. When planning a lesson, don't forget about direct instruction, right? It all comes back to direct instruction. The first thing we're going to do in our lesson, can you see my pointer? Is we're going to review. And you'll see this as cyclical because you're going to do this direct instruction over and over again in your lesson. So if I'm working on grammar, I'm going to review the grammar that I taught them last week. I'm going to teach them some new grammar. I'm going to expand upon it, which is I do. We're going to practice it together, which is we do. And then I'm going to give them some independent practice, which is you do. In that same lesson, I'm going to teach them some more vocabulary. I'm going to review the vocabulary we've already learned. We're going to learn some new vocabulary, which is convey. We're going to practice together. I'm going to check and make sure that they know it. They're going to consolidate that word, make sure that they use it in their own speech. Reading, a new reading passage or a listening passage. There might not be a whole lot to review there. You may want to talk about what you read or listened to last time. We're going to prime the pump for new listening, right? We're going to activate that prior knowledge. We're going to talk about vocabulary. I'm going to give them some reason for listening or reading this new piece. Maybe they do the Kwl chart. Maybe it's a comprehension question. Maybe it's listening for vocabulary. Maybe they'll have to write something about it. And then we're going to ask them lots of questions and make sure that they really got it. So we go through this cycle many times within one lesson, ideally. People don't have big attention spans. So even within an hour lesson with an adult, I would come prepared with 3 to 4 activities to do. You don't want to spend too long on one thing. How are you going to fit? How are you going to fill? I always think of 2-hour chunks. That's how we did it in Pittsburgh. I understand a lot of people here may be only doing 1 hour, which honestly, over Zoom, I think is enough. And maybe you meet a couple of times a week if you can. If you have a basic literacy student, you're going to work on reading. And you're going to want to make sure to do this word. These are those 4 circles: word identification, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency in every lesson. And you're also going to want some kind of writing in every lesson. You need to have writing in every lesson, whether you have a reading, basic literacy student or an ESL student. Writing makes it multi-sensory, and it helps go straight to their brain. If you have an ESL student, you're going to want speaking activities. Again, working on vocabulary, maybe doing a dialogue, which I know we didn't cover here. A dialogue is a pre-written conversation between 2 people where you would have the student actually memorize the 2 parts, so that they have like an idea of language that is used in specific contexts. I'm not going to go into that too much. We can always do a refresher ESL if you have an ESL student and talk about dialogues at that time. You probably remember doing them in high school when you took your language course. And it was like, my father-in-law took Spanish, and he always, whenever we're at like a Mexican restaurant, he always goes, "Ay, caramba." And then he like goes through this whole like Spanish montage, which was some kind of dialogue he learned in high school that he just remembers from Spanish. So we all did these in school, and they're very beneficial, particularly when you can link them with your students' individual lives. You want to put some pronunciation and some grammar. Also with an ESL student, you need some listening activities for comprehension, which is what we've talked to with that before, during, and after. Again, using dialogues and having these explicit listening exercises. In a lesson, I want you to use, if you get a textbook, I don't know, I think BA and Susan will be talking more about what you will get from literacy volunteers. I know that we have a stockpile of textbooks that you can check into. They're great for like teaching grammar. I couldn't teach grammar all by myself. I need a guide to kind of tell me like, start here, go to this next, because grammar just builds upon itself. So I recommend a textbook for grammar. I love Betty Azar, A-Z-A-R. So if you get a student who's really working on grammar, an ESL student working on grammar, those are great. But don't just use a textbook or you will be boring. So we want to bring in some supplementary materials. I talked a little bit about that with like newspapers, magazines, their own mail that they're getting, advertisements, News for You is also an online resource. That didn't we pay for that for tutors?
Yeah, I just signed us up for 15 weeks. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, so it may be coming to an end soon.
No, it's beginning.
Oh, okay, good.
Begin now. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So definitely check that out for your students. That just, it's online. It'll read the articles to the students. They're timely. I think it comes out every week, potentially.
Yeah.
It has games, it has discussion questions. I mean, it just has so much relevant information for your student. And then the last column there are tutor created activities. So see, LEA is in that column, using flashcards, sequencing is moving papers around, puzzles, dialogue journal is another great thing you can do with your student. And that's just having like even emails back and forth, right? So just having a conversation where they hear back from you and you model the correct language for them in your response. Okay, I know this is like way too much information. So here we have creating a daily routine. This is invaluable. It makes, when you can get into a routine, and it takes a little bit of time. When you first get a student, you got to get to know each other. You're figuring out where the student is, but in time, you're going to get a routine. And it helps the student predict what's going to be happening in the lesson so that they can focus a little bit better. It makes lesson planning so much easier when you have a routine, so it's a win-win. At the beginning of your lesson, you're going to check in with them, you're going to catch up. You know, you want a little bit, because you want to have that rapport and that relationship with your student. You're going to get them ready to start working on something. So you might be talking about what the topic is and tapping into their background knowledge on that. You want to review what they've already learned. And then you can start teaching. I mean, you've got 20 minutes of stuff before you get into new material. It just takes that long, right? It's just part of it. And then we're going to keep teaching that new information and go through that spiral that we talked about earlier. Every lesson should include review. Please, please, please review with your student every single time. You need to have objectives. I'm a teacher, so I'm going to say you need to write your objectives down, what it is you want your student to leave with that day. What can they use as soon as they leave your class with you? A list of the materials that you'll need, step-by-step procedure. Now, when I first started teaching, I would write a script out for myself. I mean, I would, because I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to give them the information that they need. I'm not going to forget something. I'm going to have enough. And so my lesson plans would be real long. So, and that gets easier over time, but don't be surprised if you feel like you need to really prepare for that lesson. Some method of evaluation. So how do we know that they achieved that objective, right? And it can be as simple as just asking them a question. What did you learn today? What, solve this problem for me. Talk about the topic, but something that you need. And then some kind of homework for them. If they don't do homework, it's up to them. They're adults. Encourage them to do homework. They'll meet their own goals quicker, but I don't like doing homework either. So I understand, but we want to encourage them to do some homework. And then this is just kind of pointing out that these are a routine. This review will become the routine, and the ending is part of a routine. You may even find, I always cover vocabulary first, I do grammar next, and then I give them something to read or listen to that includes that vocabulary and grammar that we talked about. So it'll become a routine.
Next message.
And then this just shows parts of the lesson plan.
Okay, I think you should look.
So the lesson routine helps students know what to expect in each lesson. Make sure that you do the review and make some things automatic so that you can just like plug and chug into your lesson plan. And then the lesson plan will help keep you focused on what it is that you want them to learn. You'll maybe switch out some activities to keep it interesting and to keep like weaving in different topics. So there's lots of things. This is the art of teaching, right? And trying to get all that information to them in an interesting and engaging way. The end. So what questions? Oh my goodness. Could you please go back to your KWL chart? And on your L, I'd like for you to tell me what you learned. This can be about language experience activity or lesson planning, whatever you would like, whatever you remember. All right. Nala, I'm coming down and getting a cookie after this. Who can tell me something that you learned? Make me feel good, like I taught you something.
I have learned in the LEA process, it's important to write down exactly what they say. And then, like you said, going back and maybe editing the text a little bit where there is repetitions of words or ideas. But I think that was an interesting and a very beneficial point for me.
It's hard because you're going to want to change it. You're going to want to make it exact. And like with that, like gauge your student on that. Because some students are like, I want to know every mistake that I make. And so in some ways, you know, we do want to give them that feedback and so that they can improve. But other times, you know, too much feedback can be like too much information from them as well. So you may want to give some little tidbits of what's wrong and then leave room for more exploration. I mean, it's kind of like gauge your student on all of that as well. Everything I say is a suggestion, essentially. But good.
The value of reviewing each lesson.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully you saw that today. Like, I'm not teaching rocket science here. I know you can do all this, but like you just forget, or like it just doesn't come back that easy. You have to hear it again and again. You have to hear it like 9 times or something before it actually sinks in. Yeah, there's never too much review. What else?
It was a little unclear to me, like how you get someone from where they are to something better, and this LEA process is a way of both doing that. So you meet them where they are, make sure that they are using the words that they know correctly, and also then build on top of it. And then over time, you can go back to it and then show, like it helps show progress, which is something that's really important and hard to do as a teacher.
Right on, right on, awesome.
I enjoyed the little list of strategies, and one that I had not ever thought about was words separately on a piece of paper, and you move them around and put them in a sentence. I just had never thought to do that. And then I know I need to learn more about how to do things on the computer, like record and save that recording, you know, so that I can play it back or something later. And this just kind of made me realize that more, that I need to do that.
And that's the kind of thing you can pick up as you go, right? Until you need to use it, why would you learn that? but now you have a reason. Yeah, right on. Well, thank you guys for indulging me in another hour of wah to you. I hope you liked it. I'm going to turn it over to BA and Susan and just thank you again for working with our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your training.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
Oh, you're welcome.
Susan, do you want to take it from here or do you want me to go? You're muted.
There I go.
Okay.
Why don't you just go right into the resources, BA, because that is what's going to be very valuable for people.
Okay. And if you have not been able to tell, Literacy Volunteers is in a state of change or transition. And so you're going to get things, some of it piecemeal, and some of it you won't get until I learn how to access that and can tell you. But I think before I get to all the resources, I just want to know, who has tried to get into the volunteer management system? Just wave or, oh, good. And has there been a problem that you've had? Okay. Then I think that we will go into talking about pro-literacy. And so I'm going to share my screen. And okay, this is a page of your resource manual that I sent you. And it has a link that you can click on. You have to do control click to get into the pro-literacy website. So we are gonna go into the pro-literacy website now. There we go.
I still can't make my screen big enough to read.
I'm sorry. You'll just have to deal with that on your own. No, I don't know how to help you. That's something I don't know yet.
Okay.
So you could click on that link, or you can go, here is the pro-literacy website. You can click on professional development, education network.
Are we supposed to be doing this on our own? Wouldn't we lose your image?
You could split your screen, maybe.
Oh, this is one of those things I need to learn to do. I have actually looked at that site, so I'll just listen and go back and look at it later.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're still showing your Word document. I don't know if you were supposed to be showing the website or not.
I'm sorry, say it again, Amy.
You're showing the Word document. It sounded like you were wanting to show the website.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, that's where I got confused too.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't click share again, so thank you, Amy. Okay, now are you seeing Education Network courses and resources?
Yes.
So I should have clicked new share to show it was a different screen, and that's just something I'm learning. So already have an account. Has anyone made a pro-literacy account for yourself?
I have.
Okay.
I have one, but I couldn't tell you the password right now.
Well, we have an office account, and the thing is, it's going to show all of my stuff because I haven't been able to figure out how to separate that out. But so the username, just like what I wrote on your resource, handbook is office@literacyvolunteerskc.org. That's our general email address. And the password is volunteers. And so this, it says welcome BA. At some point it will say welcome LVKC. And then you'll have your account that will say welcome Bob, welcome Amy. But what I want to show you is as you begin to use your account, you will save things sort of like a favorites folder. And so I'm clicking on my stuff. Wait a minute. Okay, welcome to your stuff. So you're going to see that a lot of ESL training materials here because I took my ESL training online through Pro Literacy, and you're going to see lesson plans, lesson plan, A New Girl at School, lesson plan fitting in. So once you get paired with a student, Pro Literacy is a good place to go and look for reading material that has a lesson plan matched with it. This usually doesn't happen that I have to sign in every time I change the screen, but okay. Let me try to get back to.
If you click the little house.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, there was a little house on the far left that I think will take you back home.
Okay. Okay. Forums. These are kind of like groups on Facebook that those are the lessons up here, but here are the communities. So a lot of mine are on how to run a literacy organization, fundraising, tutor recruitment, and distance learning. When you create your account, you'll get to pick the areas that interest you, and then that's the communities that will show up in your individual site. And now I'm going to try to show you where News for You is. Well, okay, here. Okay, News for You. This is what Anita was talking about. And here's the edition for this week. And it has the different articles, who won the presidency. There's a crossword puzzle. Vocabulary words that go with the different articles. So this is it's just a really good thing that you can present to your student. And it says read and listen, and I'm not signed in anymore, so it won't let us listen to it now. Okay.
I have a question. When you go to log in, I'm trying to log in here. I wasn't sure to sign in and the password. I'm going to try to get back.
The sign in is office@literacyvolunteerskc.org.
Is that the same that is for the other website, the Pro Literacy Library as well?
It's all the same sign in.
Oh, okay, great.
And then the password is volunteers. And when you're on the login page, you will have an option to create a new account. And when I get better at Pro Literacy, I'll be able to tell you better how to work it as well. So that's all that I wanted to cover on Pro Literacy right now. Is any other questions about that? Okay. Well, Anita talked about dialogues, so I'm going to shift to another screen, and I am going to click on New Share so that you will see it. So this is a website, and even though it's for ESL, I think that you could use it for basic literacy also. The website is iteslj.org. And it's a journal for ESL teachers. So I work with two families who have limited English, and one in particular, I'm trying to think how to teach her just to carry on a conversation. And so I click on accidents at home, and it gives me some examples of questions that I can ask. And that can open up a back and forth. And that's something that I think that my student and I need, because all of her thinking and her imagination is all in French, and it all relates to Africa. So it's a little bit hard for us to find something to talk about, even if it's what are you cooking for dinner tonight? She's not able to answer. So so this will give us topics that we can cover, but also gives me ideas of pictures that I can bring in, like a knife or insecticide. And that can also then help her increase her vocabulary.
Text message or not? You did not?
So
You're not going. I'm just letting you know. You're not going.
Susan, I think that's all that I had planned.
Weren't you going to sort of run through that long list of resources that you have. Just not necessarily explain everyone, but just, you know, there's this, you might check out that.
Okay, the list that I mailed them, right?
Right. Did
Okay.
everybody get the list?
Yes.
Well, okay, so we've talked about pro literacy. I'm in the process of creating a separate forum for LVKC that is in the pro literacy website, so that when you log in, you can automatically be directed to the forum where we will have additional training materials or articles that I find, or that Susan or Anita, someone finds and puts in our forum, so that will give you another place. Some of the best literacy programs in the US are the Minnesota Literacy Council, Literacy Council of Seattle, and Literacy Pittsburgh. And for the past 8 months during the pandemic, Susan and I have been watching webinars almost daily, and they are presented by one of these organizations in conjunction with pro literacy. So that definitely is something that you might want to check out.
BA, is there a way that we can get them on pro literacy's list so they get notified of the weekly webinars like we do? Or would we just forward them to their addresses?
I think that they're going to need to make an account and sign up for the email. You know, when you go to a website, it'll say check if you want the email. I don't think that I can sign them up, but I will look at it and see. I just need to write it down so I don't forget.
Those webinars are really good. For a while, they were having one a week. They were all distance learning, as programs all over the country were trying to figure out this spring and summer how to transition to online learning. Everybody was going through it. And they would have programs like the ones BA just mentioned, speaking each week, talking about what they were doing. And it was very interesting. We got most of our ideas from them. Most of the programs in the country are much, much bigger than we are. Most of them have some employees. We're all volunteer. Many of them have as many as 300 students. We usually at a peak maybe have 50. So there are some differences, but they had some very good ideas. They usually are Thursday or Friday afternoons, and everything's free. All you have to do is sign up with Pro Literacy and then go in. They usually call them distance learning from the field, I believe. And you can get on their list. Every week they will send you a link and a notice and a reminder. And then usually Monday or Tuesday, they will send you a recording if you missed the webinar. So they're very useful, very helpful.
So in the document library on the volunteer management system, I have a document that has a summary of each of the 10 videos in the distance learning series and a link to where you find it on YouTube. So you can just copy the link and view those off of YouTube because they're public, open to anybody. The other things in the resource are what Pam Farrell mentioned last week or week before. And the PDF book download, and then how to sign into News for You.
And I sent a page with your reminder that you probably all got a series of little novellas that I use with my student, and I recommended to Kathleen. If you haven't checked that out yet, take a look at that. They are little novellas, adult topics that are written for what they call new readers or beginning readers. They're everything from drug addiction, alcohol abuse, dating, romance, divorce, child custody, but they aren't preachy, and they're little novellas. They always have a happy ending, and my student really enjoys them. She's read about 20 of them. Wow. And she's in her young 30s. She has a learning disability. She's never going to read at a very high level, but these interest her and she enjoys them. And I would suggest that for adults. Again, I would emphasize always use adult materials with adults. Even if you have a very low level reading adult, you don't want a 50-year-old truck driver to be reading about Bugs Bunny. It just doesn't work. It's demeaning almost. I had a student who was a 50-year-old roofer, and his previous tutor, I don't know who it was, had him reading fairy tales. And I gave him one of our textbooks that had stories about hunting and fishing and pickup trucks, and he was thrilled. And he thanked me every single lesson. So it's really important, and there is lots of material out there that is written for adults. The buzzword that they often use is new readers. There is even a publishing house that we should find it and send you a link to it. It's called New Readers Press. And they have all kinds of material. New Readers Press. You can Google that. And that's their specialty. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, make sure if you're teaching adults or even older teens that you try to think of what things would interest them, that you don't give them things way beyond their interest level.
So as to New Readers Press, if you look at the News for You link, they're the publisher of News for You. So the link is www.newreaderspress.com/news4you. So you've got that website right there, and that is the publishing arm of Crow Literacy. So you can get to it through several different ways, but you've got it written down on the last page of your resource list.
And the little novellas that I was talking about that I sent you the list, we have those at the office, but the office is closed and we can't get to them. The library has some, but the library isn't really operating right now. I go on Amazon and I get them used. They're about $2.99 or $3.99 used through Amazon, and they have tons of them. They're very easy to get.
Okay, and I'll put that list. I'm sorry, I forgot. I was going to add it. I'll put it in the document library on the volunteer management system so everyone has it too.
Okay.
Okay.
Another thing we are thinking about doing that they suggested in these pro-literacy webinars was having monthly get-together meetings where we can all share our experiences, ask questions. It really helps to talk to other tutors and see what they're doing and see what their problems are and what solutions they've come up with. These are not mandatory at all. It's if you feel like doing it. You know, sometimes you can join, sometimes you're busy, whatever. We will just set them. We're going to have them from 7 to 8, the third Wednesday of every month. And we'll send out reminders and we'll send out links. And if you feel like joining, if you have a question or you've done something and it really worked, join us and tell the rest of the folks, especially now when we're all so isolated and we can't just sort of meet and hang out in the literacy office like we used to. I think it'd be a nice way to keep in touch and probably pretty helpful to some of us. So I will put those up on email. As far as students go, at the moment, we have 4 ESL students who are waiting to be tested. The testers are ready to go. They are waiting for the ESL students to get back in touch and set up a time to be tested. The testing is all being done virtually, so this is new for the testers and the students. So this might be a little rough getting started, we're not sure, but that's the only way we feel safe doing it right now. As soon as we get them evaluated, I will contact you. We will send you the evaluation results and how you can contact these students. We'll do it as soon as we can, but realistically, it could take a few weeks or a month. We also are going to have a group of students from Recovery U, which is an addiction recovery residential facility in South Charleston, Jefferson, Dunbar, Jefferson, that area. We've been working with them for about a year. They have computers, they're all set up to go. They just need to give us a new list of students. We need to get them evaluated, and then we will contact you. We're also working with that's a men's facility. We're also working with a women's facility on the west side of Charleston called Recovery Point. We've also been working with them for about a year. We are waiting for a new list of students from them. We advertise periodically. You've seen our ads in the Charleston Gazette. We work through various churches, synagogues to try to attract people. We work through community organizations. We're always looking for new students. So they trickle in little by little. Sometimes we'll get a whole bunch at once. Sometimes they just kind of trickle in. But be patient. If you get nervous, if you think we've forgotten you, email us or call. Give us a nudge. We haven't forgotten, but sometimes it just takes a while, especially with the pandemic going on. Things just aren't normal.
So Susan, do the tutors pick their own student, or how does that work?
What I try to do at this point, I'm matching most of the students and the tutors. What I do is try to look at the information I have on the students and the information I have on the tutors. For example, whether you prefer an ESL student or a basic literacy student. I asked all of you when I did your intake forms, did you prefer a man or a woman? Did you, well, we're only doing adults right now. Some of our students, we have several Syrian students. Most of the Syrian women prefer women tutors. So I take things like that into account. I will recommend to you, I will give you a student's name and contact information. You will call them, talk to them, see how you think it's going to work. If for whatever reason you think it's just not going to work out, let me know and we'll give you someone else. We're very flexible. We try to keep everybody as happy as we can. If you work with somebody for 2 or 3 weeks and it just doesn't work, let me know. We'll rematch you. We try to keep everybody as happy as we can. It's hard long distance.
Well, chances are if it's not working for you, it's not working for the student either.
Right. Does anybody have any questions? You must.
Susan? Oh, sorry.
Yes, Leslie?
When you're doing the assessments with the students, are you using a translator sometimes, an interpreter rather?
No.
Okay.
Our testing is done by 2 professionals. Bill Hall, who is a licensed psychologist and worked in the education system for years, tests our ESL students. And he uses a series of nationally standardized tests to do it. I have never been there when he tested anybody. I don't know how he does it, but Bill is extremely conscientious and professional with it. Our basic literacy students are tested by Helen Epps. She has been testing for us for years. She worked for years at West Virginia Rehab Services. So both of them have been doing this for a long time and are quite professional. I couldn't begin to tell you what they do.
So the ESL students aren't coming with a false hope that there's access to a translator if they get stuck. I had that happen to me when I was working with some international students, and I couldn't support them with an interpreter, and so it was a problem.
No. And the reason I ask you when I first meet you over the phone and I do the intakes, I will say, do you speak another language? And that's just because, to my mind, I speak Spanish. I learned Spanish as an adult. I know how hard it was.
Right.
And I think it just gives you a little edge of empathy that someone who has never spoken a foreign language doesn't have.
Right, I agree.
But if you did speak Spanish and you were working with a Spanish speaker to teach them English, we would not want you to speak Spanish to them. The whole idea is total immersion. We want you to speak English to them because that's how they learn English. So there is no requirement that anybody teaching ESL has to speak a foreign language. And the students should understand that they are going to be learning strictly in English.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it does. I just wondered if they were thinking that, oh, if I get stuck, I can rely on an interpreter somewhere. And that's not the case, I know, and it shouldn't be the case, but I'm just curious about how it's set up.
Now, sometimes we have a lot of trouble communicating the sign-up process to the students
Okay.
and working that out. And we will ask a Spanish speaker, if we have one, could you please help explain to this person how we do it and what they need to do. I see Nala has a question, but Nala, voice it to me because I can't read it. Unmute yourself. Nala, unmute yourself.
I did.
There you go.
I am of the belief that it is best not to share a language with an ASL student. That's my personal experience. It would have been near impossible for me to have learned English, and if I was being taught by somebody who spoke my language.
Yeah.
It makes it doubly as hard because we're humans, you know? And no, we don't want to give them crutches. I mean, I know this is a little harsh, but.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And also, I know several of our ESL tutors have expressed frustration to me that their students don't speak English all the time at home. And I think that's unreasonable. It's very stressful living in a different culture. It's very stressful trying to navigate in a foreign language, and you need downtime when you're with your family or you're with your friends. It'd be nice if you could get them to set aside an hour in a day to speak English with each other, but it isn't realistic, and it's not worth getting angry about if they don't really speak English at home. Would you agree with that, Noah? You're muted.
Absolutely, yes, I agree. I mean, as much as I love to, I don't, in a way, I sort of don't want to befriend them if we speak the same common language, because I'm trying to do them good. I don't know, it's a very hard line. It's a hard line to cross. It's just complicated. It really is.
No,
I mean, we have,
you're a native Arabic speaker.
I started out being bilingual. I was on 2 tracks. I was French and Arabic at the same time from childhood.
Wow.
Yes. That's not unique where I come from.
Wow, again.
It's not unique at all. And it's getting even, now they're introducing a 3rd language to children when they enter school at the age of 4. Yeah.
How wonderful.
I mean, we live in a global world.
That's wonderful.
And the generation after me, my nieces, my nephews, the next generation, they're all trilingual.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're not unique either. I mean, it's common. That's also common with Europeans because of the way Europe societies are structured. So,
right,
yeah.
the way the countries are all very close together.
Right, and the structure of their society. And I want to bring up one issue. And then when I was young, when I was a kid, my father refused to allow me to pick up English as a 2nd language. He insisted that I not learn English as a 2nd language because his reasoning was English is pretty much the lingua franca of the world, that I will eventually pick it up, whether I liked it or not, you know? So he felt that he wanted me to have a chance at learning one that's not necessary, like English. So whether that makes sense right now, I mean, I'm 69 years old. That's just how he decided he wanted things done.
Interesting.
Yep. So it depends. I mean, it's a very second language. Yes, it's a complicated thing, especially for immigrants, because it all depends on their previous lives and what they want to do with their current life. We need to learn a little bit about them. It's like from the last Zoom meeting that we had, somebody mentioned that, you know, you can't insult these people by teaching them like kindergarten level stuff. So there is a lot of judgment. We have to make judgment, the sound judgment, because if we don't, they will leave. We have to make all these judgment calls as volunteers and whoever is actually in charge of running the program. It's a complicated thing.
The very first thing you want to talk to your student about is, what are their goals? Why do they want to learn English? Why do they want to learn to read and write better? And shape your teaching around their goals.
That's right. I mean, each human is unique, and their needs are what they are. We need to ask them, and we need to go from there. Tailor our teaching to their prior and current lives. It's a balance. It's a balance.
Another thing that we'll do periodically, we have what we call in-services. And we'll talk about things like this: cultural sensitivity. We'll have a couple of speakers. We had one on trauma for refugees. Various, we may have one if we have a lot of clients, students who are recovering from substance abuse. We may have some speakers talking about that experience, things that we think will help you understand your students and work with your students more easily. And we'll maybe have 3 or 4 of those a year, and we'll give you plenty of notice by email ahead of time.
So Kathleen, you had a question before?
Yeah, what would you recommend in homework? I guess the amount of time it might take, or whatever guidance you would have on that.
There's a tutor with our program who takes, I think it's those Who Was books, and she does fill in the blank questions for each chapter, like the one I'm familiar with that she did, and it is available to everybody, although locked up in our office, was Who Was Anne Frank? And for each chapter, she would have like, Anne Frank had a blank life, and it could be happy or sad. You know, she might put suggestions, or it could be just a sentence straight out of the book that she leaves the word out. That's mostly for comprehension, but if you were going to do that, I would use those as my vocabulary words as well.
Okay. Thank you.
And some students do homework and some of them just don't.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to
I've had both.
And I just want to caution, like, we don't want students to not come because they haven't done their homework.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like, you know, you don't want to like layer on the guilt. So like, it's kind of up to them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I never gave my basic literacy student homework because there was no one in the house who read. They were all illiterate. Now he did really well in class, but there was no one that he could practice with.
Mm-hmm.
So we had none.
Okay.
More questions? Well, thank you very much, Anita. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope we all get you students soon. I'll do my best.
All
And we'll
right.
all keep in touch. Call me or email me anytime.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, BA.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you for
Bye.
participation and interest.
Yes, thank you very much for volunteering. I think you'll